Welcome to The Disruption Is Now. Join us on this enlightening journey as we explore how AI is impacting our jobs, careers, lives, and the human experience. Each episode, host Greg Matusky will converse with visionaries and innovators at the forefront of AI, diving into its challenges, opportunities, and impact. So buckle up as we venture into the heart of disruption, and together, let's unfold the future.
We're back again for another podcast here at Ai4. I think this is our first repeat guest. Francesco Martin is the CEO of Stride, and we had him last year. We were talking about AI, but the world changed quickly in the world of AI in ways that is very unpredictable. So welcome back.
Thank you.
So
what an honor.
Give us an update. What's happened since the last time we spoke?
Well, now everyone is building agents. Everyone is adopting AI. Everyone is doing things at scale, but not everyone is getting business value at scale.
Well, before we go on, let's just go on a little bit. I want to hear your definition of an agent and how close we are, and if they're effective, and are they working on the enterprise side?
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely use cases where agents are having a tremendous impact. These are just basically instances of a large language model that are given tools and a task, and they can go ahead and do them themselves. For example, we work with manufacturing clients, and you have agents finding sources and negotiating contracts with vendors just to optimize supply chain. That's a great use case for agents.
So the agent actually does the negotiation?
Yep, with people.
And it's better than a person?
It is, on average, yes, it is.
So an agent can squeeze me like a person can?
Yes.
Now that's very interesting.
It's going to be funny when the other end has an agent too. So it's going to be agent to agent negotiation.
Yeah, we did a podcast, I think, of Money 2020 with a company that actually has a negotiation agent for consumers, and it calls different, for instance, cable providers, streaming providers, and it cancels, and they immediately go into the negotiation phase. So it negotiates back to see what the best discount they can have. But what's happened is the streaming services and the cable companies have learned what the tip-offs of the agent are. So they've countered. Now they know what the limit is on the agent. So it's a war of agents going back and forth. But
makes sense.
So how's your business going, and what direction are you taking it?
Yeah, it's fantastic. I mean, it's scaling very, very rapidly. We're playing in a much bigger playfield than before. We're being able to help very, very large organizations adopt AI pragmatically. We've built a set of products that are helping customers really make money out of AI. And so it's quite exciting. I think a smaller company like ours is now able to compete with much bigger fishes because we are AI native and we have all these tools to help us be more efficient.
Break that down for me as far as how you can compete with the big boys on a playing field that's no longer level.
Yeah, I mean, for us, we have a lot of experience with AI and Gen AI. We've been doing it for 5 years at this point. So we've seen a lot of things that work and a lot of the things that don't work. And we're solving second and third order problems. So other firms are thinking about, what tool do I use to optimize this particular process? We're already thinking about, you actually need to use this particular tool, and you need to think about guardrails, because if you just put the AI tool in production, it may have a high throughput of low value, and what you want to make sure is that you're steering that tool in the right direction.
So let's start there, and what's not working, and where companies are spending money, gobs of money on solutions that might not be spec'd well, or solutions that might not be needed.
Yeah.
What's the fallacy there?
Yeah, I think, I did a talk yesterday here where I showed some figures. 70% of AI initiatives today fail. They produce 0 ROI, which is absolutely ridiculous. This technology is like game changing. And why is that? Most of the time, what companies try to do is to shove in AI into an existing process that already doesn't work very well. And what they don't realize is that AI changes the game. You need to change your processes, you need to change your people, you need to measure business outcomes. And that is very, very difficult. It's very easy to just measure outputs, right? You're a software engineer, you can measure how many lines of code you write, but it's very hard to measure how much business value you actually create. And companies are not doing the hard work, they're just picking up tools, and then they're getting high throughput, low value stuff.
Well, that's interesting because reworking the workflow, I saw this quote recently that Edison, he didn't iterate on the candle when he came up with the light bulb, right? Instead, it created a whole new way of lighting our world.
Exactly.
And
that's a great metaphor for this.
Yeah, it really is. And I found in my own business that instead of trying to plug it into failed systems, we really tried to find how we can work the entire workflow around it from start to finish.
Yeah.
Because when it really gets awkward is when you're trying to get people to shoehorn in an AI solution. It's not turned to, it's not used. They migrate right back to what they're familiar with. And behavioral change management is very hard.
Yeah.
So,
and that's key, by the way. It's not just changing the process, it's empowering people. You need to empower people with knowledge, with tools, and with a specific goal. And they're the ones, the people on the front lines are the best ones to know this process is not really working. We can redesign it this way. But they need a mandate. And that is where most organizations come short, and therefore 70% of AI initiatives fail.
And they have the subject matter expertise to really understand the process.
Exactly.
But how do you arm them with the AI knowledge?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot about training, education, showing the tools that exist in market, sending them to conferences like this. But frankly, there's nothing like learning on the job. So many times companies hire us, for example, to create joint pods of client engineers and or engineers. They work together on a problem with AI, and that way, that's the best way to cross-pollinate the knowledge. So,
You know, I was on a panel yesterday, and I started by saying that imagine you have 140 employees. That's what I have, and the surveys show that the number one job that AI is going to eliminate is marketing and PR. Yeah. And then imagine you just announced, as we did 3 years ago, that we were going to undertake an AI process. Yeah. I mean, the amount of resistance was palpable. People came up to me and said, "What's the game here? Are you just going to eliminate our jobs?" There was so much misinformation, and quite frankly, I didn't even know at that point whether it would eliminate jobs. But I knew this much: it was here and it was real, and we had better explore it. The irony is it hasn't eliminated any jobs. It has added tremendously to productivity. Yes. I mean, our productivity, revenue per employee is up 20%.
Yes.
But you know what else is up? Employee retention.
Yeah.
Right? People are staying with us longer because they're getting something they can't get anywhere else. And that is a full training program in AI, which is going to assure the viability of their career in the future. Yeah. The way I embedded it, Francesco, is I told everyone, productivity is great, and that's going to be a business objective. But more than anything, I want AI to advance your career. And look,
that's amazing.
I love everyone to stay here the rest of their career. I'm a realist. I know you'll go on, but I'll make one promise. You'll be more valuable no matter what you do in the future if you come along with me and you master AI and what we do, right? And that was a pretty convincing sales process. Yeah. Not only did it allow us to retain employees longer, but it allows us to recruit easier, because in my world, there's still a huge amount of resistance in the world of marketing and PR to AI tools, especially PR. Marketing is adapted to it. Digital marketing, I think, is adapted to it to the fault of a lot of unnecessary email marketing campaigns hitting my inbox. So tell me what else you're seeing and what's exciting you about the conference.
I mean, I just want to comment that you actually follow the best practice that we see in industry right now. You think about AI as a way to enhance human cognition, not to replace human cognition. You're empowering your people to learn the technology and to do their jobs better in a way that is more fulfilling to them. That is how you succeed. So it's amazing to see you doing that.
Francesco, what you just said is more fulfilling is so important in that equation, because we all want to feel good about what we do for a living. In my business, in your business, it's probably even at this point, if you get a project back from a client that they're unhappy with, that probably keeps you up at night. Yeah. And I've been at this all my life. If a client is unhappy, that's what really keeps me up at night. AI, you can reduce some of that by creating a higher quality product with human oversight. I never say humans in the loop, because it's more than humans in the loop. It's actually humans giving it the direction, the insight, and the review, and the velocity, right? Yeah. I mean, the damn thing doesn't do anything unless there's somebody who knows the industry, or knows the topic, or knows the opinion, or knows the direction of where we're taking the conversation. Yeah. So in that respect, I think what you say about fulfillment, about self-esteem, about feeling better, about progressing your career more quickly, gaining a place at the table. I always analogize it to that 27-year-old professional who's just been given a huge task by the CEO or the C-suite, and 4 hours later they come back with the letter of understanding, the a draft contract, a creative brief on the launch, and the board sits there with their mouth open. But that's where we're at.
That's where we're at.
So, what else are you seeing? What else did you interest you here?
I mean, I'm really excited. I'm seeing a lot of companies, again, adopting AI, and the idea of guardrailing AI, both with human cognition and with AI, is really interesting, and I think is really resonating. We've built a tool that automates some of the guardrailing of engineering. So code generation tools are great. Sometimes they build code very fast and they break things. So there are other companies such as us that are building tools that help you guardrail AI with AI. Because at a large enough scale, the human in the loop process is challenging, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
You need to have AIs controlling other AIs.
So what's the guardrails doing? It's assuring that the code actually works, or it's picking out
several layers. So ensuring that the code actually works and is close to the spec that was already given to the code gen tool, but also that it doesn't break things that are critical to your business that may not be part of the functionality. For example, web performance or accessibility. If you're an e-commerce, you're trying to sell anything, if your website loads too slow, people are going to bounce back. So your conversion is going to drop. Even worse, today, everyone is using AI engines to search. So if someone is searching for mattresses and you sell mattresses, you used to do SEO. Nobody's talking about SEO anymore. We're talking about AIO, GEO. If your website is not accessible, it's not accessible to humans, it's not accessible to ChatGPT. So your rankings are going to lower, therefore you're going to get less visitors. So what our tool does is effectively make sure that whatever code you put in production is optimized for web performance and accessibility, so your clients don't bounce and robots don't bounce either.
So what's that tool that assures GEO?
Yeah, it's called Conductor. And we actually spun it off from Stride, our company. It's VC backed, and we're getting a ton of traction with media companies, e-commerce companies, because they really care about this. It's a nascent space.
And so, what's it doing? What's it doing to the content that makes it more surfaceable to AI engines?
In this case, it's only for code, so it actually refactors the code to make sure that it loads very quick and it's accessible. So if your button is not accessible for whatever reason, it changes the color or the structure. It's at the code level, not at the content level.
Understood. It's interesting because we're launching a new product next week, and it's with regard to AI search, and it's right now 20% of searches are taking place on AI engines, and it's only growing. And it's going to grow because Google's broke search. We all know that. It's a disaster, and it really is as helpful as we'd hope it would be. And it's so wonderful to get an AI search where the narrative is all in place. But where it's gaining the information is difficult to tell. A lot of the recent studies have shown they draw from a lot of authoritative media. Mm-hmm. That's our chest high fastball. That's what we've done all our career. So we're announcing a new program, P3. It's placement in top level media. It's publishing in the right way on owned content, and it's push. It's being out there in sites, third-party sites. And when I do those studies, it's always amazing to me from an enterprise point of view, these third-party sites may not be what you think they are, right? It might not be. I mean, Wikipedia is pretty powerful in what I've seen, but if you're B2B, like it could be a competitor site that they're taking it from where you may be listed. So it's an interesting time all around, and you're always interesting to me and what you're up to. I like to keep a tab on you and see where you're going with Stride, and you're really kicking some ass out there with regard to the bigger, slower moving competitors. So keep me up to speed. I thank you for your time, and we'll see where you are next year at this time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and see you next year.
Thank you. So we're continuing our series of podcasts. The disruption is now from the floor of Ai4. It's been a great show. 8,000 people. We're learning a lot in the sessions, but also we're meeting a lot of new people, new ideas, both on the investment side as well as the development side. My next guest, Ray Wu, he comes from a firm called Alumni Ventures. They had some news that they announced right from the show floor yesterday, I guess. Why don't you tell us the news about your new fund?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Greg. My name is Ray Wu. I'm managing partner with Alumni Ventures. We're one of the most active VCs in the industry. Our whole setup is to democratize the VC access for individual investors. So you think about where everyone can build a mutual fund portfolio of public stocks. Why can't you build a portfolio of private stocks, right? So that's the whole setup. So with $10,000 and above, you can build a diversified portfolios around startups that actually are the portfolio companies led by well-established VCs, and we co-invest with in this model.
So give me some insight into that. If I'm an investor and I want to try to diversify a bit and go into early stage, how's it work?
It works by coming to, if you think about it, a lot of times, how do you actually get access to this VC asset, right? It's very hard because most times you probably takes $500,000 to $1 million and you want to come in and say to go to Kleiner Perkins, the Sequoia of the world, and they look at you and says, why am I taking you $1? What's your value add? And the minimum is like $500,000, like I mentioned. It takes a lot of capital and takes a lot of access, and you need to figure out where your value add is to this. Ours is all about investing together that actually create value together. So we have a large community, 850,000 community members coming into this network, and then we've been kind of building this for the last 10 years, 1.5 billion raised, mainly from individual investors. They come in, they're looking at this asset classes. Well, I think the private company is actually doing very well. I mean, a few years ago, $400 million, you can go IPO. These days, you take $1 billion at minimum, right? Several of these startups, when they go IPO, is tens of billions of dollars. So then how do you capture the early wave of their growth is that you want to get into this asset class. Then, so with $10,000 investment, they just come into our fund. We built a diverse portfolios, 15 to 20 companies on a yearly basis. And then essentially every year they feel like they want to invest more, they can come in, or they can go into diversify into different verticals
Now, this
as well.
might be a naive question, but will this fall under the 401k opportunity that the government's trying to get through right now, the Trump administration, with regard to PE and
that's a good
investing?
question. I think it will. As currently, it's in, I think, in the process. Typically, what happens that people come in with the traditional monies, or they can set up a self-directed 401k, self-directed RRA, and come into this asset class.
Gotcha. So are you going to market to the wealth manager, RIA segments, as well as to individuals, perhaps? What's the game plan there?
Yeah, we have a lot of financial planners actually direct their clients into our funds. They do need to have a long-term horizon. This is illiquid compared to the regular stock, right?
Yeah.
But historically, the performance is better. So, and then just because now with the AI create a lot more possibilities, right? So I've been in this industry for a long time. I actually started as a programmer, C and C+ programmers a long time ago, then worked with IBM in Deep Blue chess games, kind of watching this AI space. I was in Cisco doing investment merger acquisition during the internet waves. I was in HP kind of in the mobile waves. Now I'm watching the AI wave, right? So this kind of repeating. So we have seen this kind of every time there's a disruptions, there's a lot of new opportunities coming in. And that's how Amazon, right? You look at the last wave, like internet wave, Amazon come in, kills Barnes & Nobles, right? So all this kind of new native type of companies, because new technology due to disruptions, and they come in. So we're excited about this kind of AI waves, and we think the investors is a great chance for them to take part of that.
So let's flip it from the investor side to the company side that you look for.
Yeah.
And I asked you this before off camera, but what does it hinge upon? Is it the people? Is it the idea? Is it the traction? Give me some insight into what you look for in companies that are in those portfolios.
Yeah, I think it varies by as a new opportunity. It's the existing sort of existing industries disruptions, right? I think just like I also mentioned about YouTube, right? Traditionally, we don't have that kind of more of the creator economy until the kind of new platform coming out. Doesn't matter as TikTok, YouTube of the world, right? The new possibility to creating something new. In that segmentation, I think we're looking for founders who are creative, who's resilient, and who's flexible in terms of approach, because that's a new market. Nobody knows how to solve that market, right?
Yeah,
so that's on the B2C side. Then on the B2B, I think we're looking for founders with vertical domain knowledge, kind of know their space, but combine that with technical capability. We're looking for founders kind of funding team that has both the capable of the technologists, but also vertical domains, and be able to grow into that market and be able to solve that unique problem set. So it really depends on the segmentation. But what we bring to the table are the networks. What we call the reason we call Alumni Ventures. We have about 850,000 community members. A lot of them come from the university alumni networks. Think about Stanford, Harvard, MIT, Berkeley, Columbia of the world, and come together. And that's a big network to help startups, right? So as you think about them, for them to tap into that network, they can find employees, advisor, board members. So that's a human pool that we bring to the table. We're also a co-investor. We have a large portfolio companies inside. We have close to 1,600 portfolio companies now. So with that, we have a CEO service team, connect CEO with other CEOs. So we are trying to add value when they come into so how do they actually meet the right customers? We be able to help them to connect to our communities. Also looking for employees within those organizations. In parallel, we want to connect with other founders in parallel, so that they can build an ecosystem around the vertical domain space or whatever the solution they're providing.
So my last question, because I got to ask, as you walk around AI4, what are you seeing? Yeah. What's the velocity? What's the direction? What do you think the great plays will be in AI?
That's a great question, because we kind of been funding a few years ago very much into the infrastructure space. So for example, some of the names like Lambda Labs, which is similar to CoreWeave that IPO'd, and so that's in the GPU space. We're in Cohere, which is a kind of enterprise large language model space. We're in Grok, which is more of the computation acceleration space. We're in a lot of these kind of infrastructure companies for the last few years, and we watch them grow. So I think that segmentation is in a more mature stage, probably less. We're continuing to fund maybe smaller language models, maybe into the industry domains. Those kind of language models, I think there's opportunities. But in parallel, we're seeing a lot of these kind of new kind of agent kind of architectures building. So they're coming in the enterprise, try to solve enterprise problems. I was a moderator in one of the sessions yesterday and talk about all the challenges and opportunities within the vertical industries. And I think a lot of these is around securities, observabilities, data privacies, the controllabilities of that. So a lot of these are the new opportunities with the AI that's coming in. So depends on the space, depends on the vertical domains. It's very different. So I think by different segmentation, we tend to look at different company a little bit differently at this moment.
Thanks for giving us your time today. It's the interesting news that your fund's going forward and that you're going to be looking at AI first. And on the investor side, it's a unique opportunity to become a part of the excitement that we feel here at AI4 and in general what's happening in the global economy as far as this new intelligence that touches all of us. So I want to thank you for being with us and best of luck. And I'm sure we'll keep an eye on what you're up to.
Thank you, Greg, for having me. Appreciate that.
Hey, we're coming back to you at AI4. We have another guest with us. Little different story this time. They're operating at scale. Maven AGI. I have Sami Shalabi. He's the CEO of the company.
CTO.
I'm sorry, CTO.
Okay.
And he's operating at scale with a lot of major companies on their customer experience and developing agents. So unlike a lot of the startups, a lot of the dreamers, and a lot of the hopefuls here today, you are the real deal.
Would like to be.
Yes. Yeah, you definitely are.
Yeah.
So tell a little bit about Maven AGI and who you're working with and where your sweet spots are.
All right. So Sami Shalabi, CTO at Maven. Little bit of background, fourth company, and I used to run all of product and engineering for Google News way back when.
Google News. I lived on Google News.
Yes. Lots of stories. If you're maybe later.
Over a couple drinks.
Yes. We caused a few international incidents as part of that product. Anyways, so Maven AGI, we're building AI agents for customer experience where we're initially focused on the customer support use case. And we pretty much work with large enterprises. The problem we're solving is I have yet to meet a customer that says, I want to build a bad support experience.
This is true.
Yes, everybody wants to build the best customer experience possible. However, it's really, really, really hard. And then when you actually dig into why it's hard, you discover that the handoffs are a big part of the problem. The poor person you're communicating with has to log into 6 to 9 different systems. So we've built a product that has really 2 parts. One is AI agents that operate in every imaginable modality. You can chat with it, you can text it, you can WhatsApp it, you can social media with it, you can talk to it. So every imaginable modality, we have agent assist. And then the other part is that we've actually built a platform to build and manage these agents at scale. The platform is intended for helping business operations folks manage these agents. So that's actually what ends up being the future of how the CX organization will need to operate, is because they're no longer, it's not about the busy work, it's about managing agents and dealing with high complexity issues. And then we've also figured out how to integrate we've built a platform that is able to integrate across all the different systems that exist in enterprise to be able to resolve these issues. In terms of real world results, we work with large enterprises, folks like TripAdvisor, ClickUp, Row. We have over 50 customers. We've processed about 15 million customer support tickets to date. So we're pretty significant scale. And for our customers, we typically achieve 90+ automation rates through our AI agents.
Now, before we went live, you had said that this isn't about job replacement. This is really about helping individuals understand the process and the bigger picture. Can you go into that a little bit and explain
Yes.
what you mean by that? Because I think everyone thinks it's a magic wand AI.
No, one of the things as a technologist, I spend a lot of time thinking about the technology. And one of the things early on I underappreciated is having a true understanding of the change management, the human issues that emerge as part of this. So a couple of things. In order to drive human adoption of AI agents, number one is you have to be integrated into people's workflows. So so that's one key artifact. Like people need to use it as part of how they're operating. That in a way starts to kind of unlock a lot of the efficiencies that you tend to see. Most of the customers we work with are pretty much in an environment where the business is growing at a certain clip. The customer experience org tends to grow linearly with the growth of the business, which after a while is not sustainable. We hear this quote from some of our customers. We go from, if they grow at the rate, they're going to go from 1,000 to 7,000 agents. So the issue that they run into is that they can't grow at the same rate. So what we've seen a lot of our customers do is not about staff augmentation or staff reductions, is that they're actually using a lot of the savings, because all the busy work disappears, to actually drive more customer interactions with their customers, to actually be in a position to give more people white glove treatment.
Well, this is interesting because in my own business, which is pretty AI enabled, we don't bill on an hourly basis, but we do document bill hours, because then we know how to price in the future in some regard. And what we've seen is a shift in the low value tasks into the higher quality, and then a really expansion into the last one, which you were mentioning. Relationships, dealing with clients, dealing with the media, right? It's really relieved people of having to do the
busy work.
Right. The monitoring of Google News and things like that, and really focus on what the expectation is, what the stories within the organization are that you can draw out. That's probably the biggest value you can bring as a PR agency, is understanding what stories they have, which would align with what the outside world wants to hear about, which is a trick in itself, because so many companies just want to market through PR, and that doesn't sell. So I've seen the exact same thing, this gradual upscaling of the value proposition.
Oh, absolutely. And what it ultimately does for a lot of the people, most typically think of support as being a cost center.
Yeah, absolutely.
As you start to free people up to actually drive more customer interactions and building the relationship, that world suddenly pivots from being a cost center to actually a revenue driver, because what is happening is we're blurring the functions. So a support agent is now starting to do success work, which is driving more value, et cetera. That's actually one area where we see a lot of folks kind of take the savings in time.
So help me out. What is success work? That's a new term to me.
Oh, customer success. So it's usually post-sales, and their job is to make sure you are successful using the product and expanding your usage of whatever product you're selling. So real examples, we work with a bank called Row. They took a lot of the savings in kind of the support area and actually drove it to have more interactions with their customers. They typically work with startups, growing companies, so that they get more value out of the product.
Interesting, and that's something else I've seen is that you don't necessarily save dollars. You find other ways to deploy them that can have better returns. All right, we've added to our workforce maybe 10% this year, right?
Yeah.
But we've added to our tech stack, right? In investing in technologies that will allow us to do this. We've invested, for instance, in training programs that we never had before. AI necessitated that because it was new, right?
Yeah.
You could no longer just do it through osmosis. That's how most of my industry would train.
But you're not the only one. So real example, so we work with a customer called ClickUp. Very complex product. And one of the products that they bought from us was an agent assist product that's integrated into their ticketing system. And one of the biggest challenges they had was first general overall efficiency, but when there is turnover, the typical ramp for a new person to become as efficient as a tenured person took them 9 months.
Right.
After they deployed our agent assist, that dropped to 1 month, which is a pretty significant savings.
Absolutely.
And then overall, what they saw is 35 to 40% agent productivity across the board. So they're able to kind of handle more inquiries than normal. And that was another example of how, if AI is integrated into the workflows, this is actually a big thing from the user experience perspective. It becomes a core part of how they work, and it starts to have material impact on real numbers, real use cases, real value.
And let me throw another thing in there. It has real value, right? And KPIs are important, very important. It also has the attendant benefit of reducing employee attrition. This is from my own experience. Our employee retention is up 38%. And that's because, just what you were saying, if you can take somebody and move them away from the tedium and those things that really don't have an impact on the organization, and you can move them up. So if you, like you said, in success, right? So you move into success, and all of a sudden, instead of dealing with complaints and the tedium, you're dealing with how to reward somebody or make them feel better. That's a more rewarding career
because
opportunity.
they're able to get to outcomes faster.
Right.
And
my own business, we've been able to take people who were doing just logistical work, and now they can capture the voice maybe of the CEO in a written content piece, and you say that's just gives way to higher self-esteem, and that's one of the reasons I think our employee retention has increased.
Oh, absolutely. And the other thing is that. Because I run the engineering team at Maven, and what's really happening is functions are blurring. It used to be you had a person do a certain job, and because they're suddenly more productive and they're able to use Gen AI tools to close some of the competency gaps, the functions are blurring, and generally people are more productive, but not just productive in their own domain, in other domains, which is I think
interesting.
Which is I think it's a. We'll see where this lands in various functions, but for example, in product and engineering, it's definitely blurring.
Right.
And it's also messing with what typically large organizational ratios, like when I was in the engineering land, like you have a certain ratio between product and engineering. Those are now completely off because of the nature of the productivity and the blurring of the functions. We see this across customer experience. Support people are now doing success. Success is starting to do sales because because of a lot of these tools.
That's interesting. It's the first time I've really heard this blurring phenomenon.
Yeah.
I have to think it through, and I think I see it in my own organizations that you can gain expertise so quickly with AI, right? That you can do things you never did before. You could handle a crisis situation for a client, where in the past you were kind of an island on your own. If you were new to this game, you needed a senior person. Your senior person could be that assistant you have which we have, a AI crisis assistant, which asks the questions, what are the real threats? For instance, one of the questions it prompts is, what's the degree of threat here? Because organizations will often miscalibrate, right? They'll think things that are minor, they'll overlook, and things that are
Absolutely.
Things that are major sometimes they'll overlook. Things that are minor, right, they may overreact to. So that's a blur.
Yes, and I think it has implications on how you train people, how you onboard them, how the skills you start to look for. Because when I think about it, the way we hire now is like, I'm probably looking for more product-minded engineers because of this functional blurring.
Right.
And so it's I mean, we'll see where all this stuff lands, but the world is changing in an interesting way, that the ratios and the way we the world has been segmented on human skill. And with AI, skills are now diversifying, and the way you build competencies is changing. And we'll see where it lands, but it's definitely blurring a whole bunch of functions across the board.
Well, you've made me think of some new things and added to my nightly study when I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning thinking about these things.
You're also up at 3 in the morning all the time?
Yeah. I think the guy, there's a thought leader, his name is Ethan Mollick on AI, and he said, if you haven't lost 10 nights of sleep in the last few months, you really aren't into AI, because you should be thinking about both the risks and the opportunities. So.
And to be honest, I think one of the things that I feel in the world of AI is that we're truly limited by our own imagination.
Yeah.
And I still think we haven't invented the future yet. The tech is solid, and it's going to keep getting better. But for example, one of the things I think about consistently around there, do you think the future of AI is a chatbot?
Is a what?
Is a chatbot?
No.
We don't know what it is.
No.
When we see it, we'll know it.
Right.
And it still has yet to be invented, and we think deeply about that. The future of user experience is going to be transformative. The fact that we have products where you have to click buttons, why do the buttons even exist?
Right.
Some of the things we're thinking about. So we have charting tools. Why do we as humans look at charts? We actually don't care about the charts. We're trying to extract an insight. Now we have an engine that actually can give you the insight, and the charts are just evidence for the insight. So I think we're in the middle of not just like, okay, it's transforming how we work, but actual product and user experience.
This is really important that we don't know what the future holds, because it really does limit us to this discussion of job replacement, right? Because we can see what jobs it's going to replace. What we don't know are the jobs it's going to create.
Oh, it is going to create a whole slew.
Yeah.
I mean, I was fortunate enough to see the first version of the internet. A lot of stuff changed. There's a whole slew of new jobs: social media, SEO, data strategy. I mean, like, there's a whole industry that emerged. A lot of the older jobs disappeared. Brick and mortar has evolved, but there's a whole digital world that's emerging, and we'll see where it lands.
Yeah.
I'm actually pretty excited about the future, because I think we're gonna see an evolution of human efficiency and productivity that's going to pretty much change how we think about work and any form of results, and how we think about everything from. And this is probably one of the biggest transformations, industrial revolution scale.
I agree. And that is a good point to go off on. I appreciate the conversation, Sami. It was very insightful. Best of luck. I'll keep an eye on what you guys are up to.
Oh, thank you.
And I just have one favor.
Sure.
Can you call American Airlines and get Maven AGI?
I'm on it.
Okay. All right. I had a bad customer experience there this morning.
You are not the only one.
Right. So thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, we just had something interesting happening at Ai4. We're sitting here filming, and a young guy walks up to us and says, I have something that's a total game changer as far as how the province on content. And that's something that was very interesting to us because as a PR shop, we need to know who generated what and who did it, when, and if it's machine generated or not. I mean, the very concept of copyright is based on somebody humanly generating the content. So Erik Svilich, did I say that right?
Yeah, that's right.
He's the founder of EncypherAI. He's got a solution for what a lot of us are talking about and seem to have no solution for, as far as creating data inside content, which will show how it was originated. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Or
My specialty is text, but I'm working with other industry experts for images, video, and audio as well.
so this idea came to you from the age-old problem of how are you going to know if something from a machine was really something that somebody says they created really came from a machine. Is that right?
Yeah, I was writing an artificial intelligence chatbot for a school district, and we were talking about how AI detection tools essentially just don't really work, and he refused to use some of them out there. And he was like, well, what's stopping my daughter from copying pasting from this AI agent chatbot that you're building to write her essay? And I was like, that's a really interesting challenge and problem. And I kind of had an aha moment, an epiphany of I might have a solution for this problem to essentially flip that issue on its head. Instead of trying to detect, to embed proof of origin when content is generated.
And take this to a broader sense. I mean, this is impacting the industry, throughout the industry, with regard to the OpenAI New York Times case.
Yes.
And walk me through that. Why is it going to be so important that this is figured out to allow AI to advance?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of publishing and media organizations are suing, especially artificial intelligence labs, for billions of dollars, and these lawsuits have been going on for over a year. And the real core of the problem is currently there's no infrastructure layer or trust layer of how do I, as the New York Times, embed proof of origin into text, a website or a blog. It's currently what wasn't really thought to be possible to do that into the actual text of the article. So when a user copy pastes it or it gets scraped off of the internet, that information follows that actual text. And OpenAI is like, well, we don't know where this information is coming from if a user just pastes in text to our system. So they don't really have a way to have that check and balance there, to have a licensing agreement, essentially, to kind of stop suing each other and, move the industry forward, essentially.
So this would provide the documentation from all kinds of data that would go into the engines for training.
Yeah, it would help with data classification, where this data is coming from, who is it coming from, how good is this data, was it generated by an artificial intelligence system, was it generated by the New York Times, which is perhaps really valuable data to make the best models that you can, which is really important because the better your models are, the more market share that you get, as an artificial intelligence company.
And as we went over before we started filming, one of my big concerns is constantly creating new generations of AI models based on synthetic data. It will erode over time. It's like making a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. Am I right there?
Yeah, one of the biggest problems in R&D, they spend about $2.7 billion per model on this issue, is the concept of AI slop, which is training on poor synthetic data that isn't, is generated by an artificial intelligence system and essentially is filling these models and overfitting these models with data that just isn't good, that users don't really like using or don't interact with well when it's posted onto the internet, for example.
And in my career, I see a lot of that. I just can't understand, after all this time, after the decades since November 2022, why it still does certain things. Why you put you give it a good prompt and it still uses vapid language at the end, or why it starts with this in today's ever-changing world. I mean, that's every AI article starts like that because originally, I guess we were such poor writers that the original training data, but I got to believe it's been trained on that then repeatedly.
Yes.
And it says, this must be good because it shows up so much and I'm a predictive being.
Algorithm, yes.
Right.
Yeah, so 100%. And this is really going to change also how AI companies interact with, performance intelligence for the organization. Is some users maybe really like that way of speaking and how those articles are laid out, and some don't. There's no real way right now to see if a user copy and pastes from your system, writes an article like that, see what engagement that got, and then tie it all the way back to that exact model ID, the settings, that context, and the prompt, most importantly, which is one of the biggest decision makers of how good is this content, right? Is all that information. Being able to tie that back to the source of origin is really important to the core of the business, and users actually liking the content generated by your AI model.
And it has so many implications. It has obviously for publishers with regard to revenue generation, for educators. I mean,
Yes.
It's impossible to tell if a PhD dissertation now is original or it's the creation of a machine. And this would allow you to see if it did in fact come from a machine.
Yeah, with that embedding, that proof of origin in there, you would be able to tell essentially how much was generated by one system or a human, for example, in the future. And I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing, because artificial intelligence should be used as a tool, and brainstorming partner, in my opinion, and that should be cited that it was used in such a way. Because it's a very
but it can
powerful
also
tool.
tell you where it's plagiarized, where the machine plagiarized, which for original academic research and dissertations is very important.
Yeah, that is definitely a potential use case of this technology. Essentially, if you're coalescing a big research paper, essentially having the ability to more accurately cite what information that you've pulled from, where does that information come from, and so that people get credit for their work.
This really fascinates me because I do think there's going to be two tiers of content out there, and one's going to be it's human generated, and the other's going to be it's machine generated. And if you like snackable content, maybe it's machine. But if you really want to be pushed, I mean, nothing's ever written. It's funny. I always say no machine has ever written anything as elegant as John Steinbeck's letter to Marilyn Monroe. Like,
They should just train on that then and stop.
It still doesn't do it.
Sure.
It still doesn't do it because there's a level of humanity and humor in it that the machine can't emulate. And humor, it just doesn't understand. Most of the models I've worked with don't understand humor. And I've tried it. I've fed in that letter many times. I said, this is what I want out of it. And sure, it'll emulate the staccato nature of it, but the brilliance of how John Steinbeck wrote that in a very ingratiating way to get Marilyn Monroe's autograph for his nephew, right, is just the human experience. It's expressed in that, and the machine does not do that. Now, for not 80% of the work I do, business-to-business communication, the machine does great work. But when you move into this other realm, you want that designation that this is human-generated. And
Sure.
as I always tell
Authenticity of human creativity, essentially.
Right. Look, we've had digital art forever, and yet still there's artists, right? We've had the first automobile to beat a human in a race was probably 1880, and yet we still have the Olympics because we want to see human performance, elite human performance, and we'd want to do that with art. We want to do that with language, and those people are special. And I think what you're doing is very special and important to the industry. So, Erik, I'm so glad that you walked up and introduced yourself. It's a fascinating topic, one that's very close to my heart because of the work I do. And thank you for sharing your insights.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Greg.
Well, that's a wrap. It's the end of AI4, the largest AI conference here in the United States. we got to meet with people from all over the world. We had the opportunity to sit down and interview them for our podcast, Disruption Is Now. It's always a learning experience. And the one thing about AI is it changes so fast, you need to stay in the flow. Ai4 gave us the ability to do that, and we hope we shared some of our discoveries and findings with you.
This podcast is a production of Gregory FCA. If you enjoyed our discussion today and want to continue exploring the transformative power of AI, please check out more episodes and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.